All right, okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So this is the first page you're gonna see when you first log into Docparser. So I'm just gonna click here where it says Create Document Parser. All right, so the first page that we end up at here is what type of document do you want to parse? So this is where you can just decide based on these options here, what type of file are you looking to parse? So we have invoices, purchase orders, the most common kinds of use cases, bank statements. If none of these suit what you're trying to do, you can always choose custom and choose from scratch whatever it is that you want to do. So for today, we're going to go over how to do invoices. All right, okay, so the next page is where we can upload our files. So when you're first creating your Docparser, the only way to import your file is going to be in this way, so either clicking to upload or dragging and dropping your files over. There are more ways to automate this later on, and we'll get to that once we have the parser set up. So at the beginning, only directly uploading. So I've got my two files. We'll go ahead and continue. All right, so now we're going to end up at the page where we can start with our parsing rules. And if you notice on the left-hand side, we already have 3 that were created by default. So this is because I did choose invoice parsing that I'm getting these 3 rules already created for me. If you choose something like a purchase order or a bank statement, you're going to see slightly different versions here, or custom, you don't have any at the beginning. So I'm just going to start by going through each one of these, and then we'll move on to starting from scratch. So starting with invoice number. So the first thing we're going to see at the top, you can see our entire file up here, and it's all in text format. And then right below that, we have automatically find the invoice number. And unfortunately, it's not finding an invoice number just yet. But that's okay. I can show you what we can do to fix that. So we just pay attention up here. We have the word invoice, and then on the next line, we have the number, where this is the number, obviously, that I want to grab, the invoice number. So what I can do is I can open up here where it says keyword-based search, and I can choose English. And that's going to give me then the option to edit that dictionary. So if I open up the dictionary, you're going to see we have all these different search terms and then the position of the value in relation to that. So here we have number, and if I keep scrolling down, we're going to find invoice just in all caps at some point here. And you can see right now the position is saying next word on same line. So what I can do is I can change this, see there's a number of other options, to somewhere right or below, to reflect what it is on my invoice, and click save. All right, so you can see now it's finding that number. So just at any point, if for some reason your value is not in here, their search term, if you go to the bottom here, you can always add another search keyword. You can type in exactly how it is on your file and where it's located. So you can always modify this dictionary if necessary. So now that we're finding this, I'm just gonna save the parsing rule. And then we're gonna move on to invoice date. So all 3 of these default rules kind of work in the same way. They all use these keyword-based dictionary searches. So this one, we're looking at this date here, and we can see it is finding it. And I get 2 results here. I get my match column, which is looking the exact same as it did on the file. And then I have the formatted version of the date as well. So 2 different columns, and I can use these both in my output, or I can just choose to use one. You can use whichever one that you want. All right, so just to kind of show you again, I'm going to choose English. And I'm going to edit the dictionary so you can see again that it's the same. We have our search terms and our value positions. And just like the other ones, you can always add another search keyword at any point if you need to. So that was working, so we'll move on. All right, so this one again works in the same way with our keyword-based search. And what we're looking for here are our totals. So if I scroll down, what it's looking for is our subtotal, our tax, our shipping, and then the total. So we have net, tax, total, carriage, which is shipping, and confidence. So this one works in almost exactly the same way. So if we choose English, there's just one slight difference where we have an additional column on this one. So this one where you can choose what is the field that this keyword relates to. Is it the total? Is it the net, the tax, or the carriage? So this is a very large dictionary that has all kinds of different options here. And as always, you can add your own search keyword at the bottom to find it if it's not finding it. So one other thing about this rule as well is that it does have a confidence rating here. So on the right-hand side, you get another column that's going to tell you a number. Preferably, it would be 100. If it's 100, it means that the math is adding up. So the net plus the tax plus the carriage is equaling the total, and that's obviously what you want. If you're seeing a different number here, something like 90 or anything lower, you're probably missing a value, and so you're going to want to edit that dictionary or change it around until it finds all the values you want. So let's go ahead and just save, and we'll start with a new one. Let's go ahead and add a new parsing rule. So you can see at the top here, what we have is our invoice parsing rule presets. Again, this happens because I did choose invoice in that first step of the type of document. Depending on the type of document you choose, you're gonna see different presets here at the top, more relevant to the type of file you're using. If I scroll down, we're gonna see we also have our generic parsing rule presets. So what I wanna go over with you is these first three here. Almost all parsing rules, or all parsing rules in some way, start from any of these three ways. So a fixed position, meaning it's at a specific location on the page, a variable position, with you want to use a keyword to locate the data that you want to find, or a table. So all of these other rules that you're seeing, they start in one of these two ways, and then they have additional filters already included to make it easier for you. But for the sake of you understanding, we're going to go one by one through each one. I'm going to start with a fixed position. So the fixed position, as I mentioned, is a specific location on the page. So what you just do is you click and you drag over top of the area on the page where the data that you want is located. So you can move this around, you can re-click and highlight a different area. But what you want to do is just capture within that box the text that you're looking to extract. So I'm going to try to grab this address here. If I wanted to, I could maybe do it like this just to get the address. But again, to make sure we kind of show you all facets of it, I'm going to extract a little bit bigger than I want, and then I'm going to filter down to get this address. So confirm. All right, so now we're left with just the text that was inside the box that I selected. And as I mentioned, I'm trying to just grab this address, this bill from address. So what I need to do is go over here where it says add text filter, and I need to say define start position. So using this filter, I'm going to define where does the actual data that I want begin. So by default, it's going to start with text match after. And so what that's looking for is a keyword to start after. So if, for example, my address started with the word address, I could use that. Unfortunately, it doesn't, so I can't, but I can use a position base instead. So I could choose something like after X lines and choose to crop off the first two to be left with just the address. Or I could also maybe choose keep last X lines and choose to just keep those last three. So either one of those will work. It just kind of depends on what's the most consistent on your file. I usually find with addresses, they're usually consistently formatted from the same vendor, so this might work better, but it's up to you. So one thing that I want to do next is just kind of format this a little bit, make it look nicer. So what I can do is under format and refine results, go to remove empty, or not remove empty line, sorry, I clicked on the wrong one, remove line breaks. And so I'm just going to get that all on one line. It's not necessary, but it'll just look a little cleaner. And then what I can also do is use this really great filter for normalizing postal addresses. So under normalize postal address, by selecting that, what it's then going to do is return this address to me all with specific columns. So instead of having this all in one cell, it's going to have separated columns for the street number, the street, the city, the state, etc. So I have all of that. So this is really great if you need this separated into your systems and things like that. You can always go back in as well and kind of merge. We have a merge columns to combine maybe more of the data, but leave the city and the state separate. It's up to you, but you can continue on doing that if you want. So now that this is done and this looks how I want it to, and I've got all my column names and everything, I'm just going to give this a name so I know later on what this parsing rule was. Oops. So bill from, and then save. And then so we'll go ahead and create another rule. So now that we've done the fixed position, let's go with a variable position rule. So this one is going to look for keywords to find the data. So what I'm going to try to grab is going to be the bill to name. So in this case, Joshua. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy this keyword here. And then you can see it already has the filters added for start and end positions. So I'm going to say start after this keyword bill to. And now we can see everything above that is gone. And then I have to define where does this end. And I can use another keyword in this case to find everything that was in between. So by changing it from the default end of line, which is just that first row, I'm going to say text match before, and then due date. All right, so yeah, then what I need to do is just kind of clean this up a little bit, remove this empty line. So that's where I'm going to add this filter here under format and refine for remove empty lines. And then just based on my experience, I know that there's a lot of spaces here after this name that was between here. So I'm going to remove those as well. So another filter, remove blank spaces. So now I'm left with just the name, and it's perfect the way I have it. I'm going to go ahead and give this parsing rule a name as well. And we're gonna save. Let's go ahead and create another parsing rule. I'm gonna go over just one of the other parsing rules here. I'm gonna choose date and show you, just kind of explain what I mean about how all parsing rules kind of start in the same way. So the date parsing rule starts in a fixed position format. So I'm gonna do the same thing that I did with that first rule, and I'm gonna highlight over the area where the due date is on my file, and I'm gonna click on confirm. And you can see I'm left with just what was in that box, and then already included for me is our find and format dates filter that's gonna format that date properly for me. So this is what I mean when I say all rules kind of start the same. What you can then do with the date formatting is you can then change the way that it is. So if your system, for example, doesn't want it in year, month, day format, but it wants it in month, day, year, you can go ahead and move this around. Just by clicking on the documentation link right here, you can see what the options are. There's other things, I believe, like changing this to a J should do something. No, maybe not. That'll give you different formats for, no, I don't know, that's okay. So I don't have it memorized, obviously. I use the documentation as well. I think if I take this. Yeah, so choosing a capital M will change it. So you can see what I mean. So you can format this however you want, just using this output format here. So once again, I'm gonna go ahead and give this a name and then save. And let's go ahead and do one more parsing rule. So from here, I'm gonna choose line items underneath the invoice parsing rule presets. So this parsing rule type and the table data, they are the same, but I'm gonna choose line items. And then we're gonna go ahead and try to grab these lines off of the invoice. So you can see by default, when I first open this rule, I am getting a crop area selection. And so if I wanted to, and my file was consistent enough, I could just highlight over where those line items are like this to make sure I only grab what was there. But for the sake of sometimes maybe only having 4 items, sometimes maybe having 10, this could change. I'm gonna show you how you can do this without using that. So then what I wanna do is with these red lines here is drag them to where the column boundaries are on my file. So I wanna split each one of these into its own column. And by clicking the plus, I can add another on either side. And then I'll have the 4 column split for how my table is on my file. So now that that's done, we'll click confirm. And then you can see now up here, we have the entire file split into those 4 columns. We also have a default rule, which you don't need, so I'm just gonna remove that. And we're gonna start again. So you can see this is the section here where my items are. What I'm gonna do is add in a table filter. So you can see it is a different filtering system now that I'm working with a table. It used to say add text filter, now add table filter, and I get some different options here. So what I'm gonna do is use this filter here called keep table section. So I can identify where does that section with the items begin and where does it end. So what I can use are keywords to figure that out. So I'm gonna say where column 2 says the word quantity, and then I can use where column 3 says subtotal. So where column 2, and then contains the term quantity, and then where column 3 contains subtotal. So now we have just that section left with the line items, and then you can just select this checkbox here, really simply skip that row, and that will just remove that header row that we don't need as well. So now that I know just the items, what I still need to do is kind of merge these into one. So I want these description lines to be combined into the first row, so I only have 1 row per item in my output. So under here, under add table filter again, I'm gonna go to group and merge rows. So by default, this is gonna set it to automatic merge. And what automatic merge looks for is a value in the first column, and it's gonna merge until it finds a value in the first column again. So mine doesn't have, an item number in the first column or anything that's gonna help that. So I can define this by myself. So just changing this to define rules. And then what I can do is define what is that unique about that first row and where does a new row start again. So I can say, a row group begins, for example, when column 2 has a value, and then I'll merge everything until it finds a value in that row again. Or I could choose something more specific, like where column 2 is an integer number. To be more specific, sometimes this is helpful when the descriptions roll over into that second column. It really just depends. I could choose something where column 3 is an amount. So there's a lot of options I have on this file. You just have to figure out what's unique about that first row to identify this for you. You can also be more specific about when a row group ends. If you don't want to end it when a new row group starts, but maybe you only want the first 2 lines of an item, you can be more specific and say when cell conditions match, and then identify that as well. So if I only ever wanted to grab description line 1, I could use this to show you what I mean. So it's only ever going to merge until it finds description line item 1 again. So this obviously isn't working, but it shows you what I mean. So I'm going to keep it as the default whenever a new group starts. So then what I want to do is just show you about the merge mode. So by default, it's going to merge the cell values, which means any rows below that are going to be merged into the cell that was above it. So this is what I want it to do, but there are other options if this doesn't work for you. You can append horizontally. This is going to add additional cells to the right-hand side. You can also choose if not empty, which if consistent enough could work really well as well. But this is really great if you don't want to merge everything into one specific cell. So we're going to leave it as merge cell values for now. Then what I'm going to do is just show you one really great filter that we have. Under alter column structure, we have name column headers. And so this will allow me to actually give these columns names for what they are. So rather than me having to guess later on what's column 1, column 2, I'll actually be able to see, and you can see as I was going, it's writing it in, what it is that I'm working with. So this is really helpful when working, especially with integrations. So you're going to be able to really easily see what that value in that column is, and you won't have to be guessing. So this already was named line items, so I'm perfectly happy with that. So we're saving, and we're going to go ahead and leave the parsing rule editor. So now you can see this is the page where we can see all the parsing rules that we have. So one little trick from this page is you can actually reorder your parsing rules at this point. So this is going to allow you to control what your output would look like if you're working with like an Excel or a CSV format. The order of these columns here is going to be the order on your file. So if you want this to be reordered, maybe move the due date up to beside the invoice date, you just hover over this blue section and you just drag it to where you want it to go. So little trick. So then what we need to do is just go back to our Documents tab and take a look at the file. So if we take a look, we're going to see that right now it's only grabbing the data that was there by default when I first set up the parser. So what I have to do is just select here, I can select all and click Move to Parse Queue for the files. And that's just going to have all of the new rules or the edits that I made apply to the files that were already in my parser. It's not a necessary step unless you've edited something after you've imported the file. Any new files, this will already happen for. All right, so they're done, so let's take a look. And now we can see all the data that we've extracted, the line items, the totals, everything. So from this tab as well, what you can see, if you click on original file, you're going to be able to see the file as it looked when you first imported it into Docparser. You can also see the pre-processed file. So if you're working with scanned documents, this will look a little bit different often. And then you can also see any webhooks that were sent from this tab. So we haven't sent any yet, but this is where if you're having any error messages come back from webhooks, you're going to be able to see and you can identify what you need to do to fix that. So we just check the other file as well. Looks good. Perfect. All right, so now that we've extracted all the data points that we want, let's go ahead and create the download link so we can extract this. So by clicking on downloads on the left-hand side, we then get these 4 options of different files that we can create. So we have our XLS, CSV, JSON, and XML. So today I'm going to show you how to do an XLS. So the first thing we need to do is just give this file a name. So I'll name that there. We have to define which data do we want to include. So you can choose from the number of files that you want to include in your file download to when those files were received. We also have this option for files received since last download. So that helps prevent duplicates. You're only going to get the information that's new since the last time you downloaded the file. I'm going to leave it as the default just because I only have the 2 files. And then under advanced configuration, you can define a few more things. So you can require authentication. This by default is on, but you can change this to no. This means the file can be downloaded when you're not logged into Docparser. You can choose to show labels. So this is just a matter of the column headers and things like that in your Excel file. Then we have include fields. So by default, all the fields are going to be included in your output. You can change this to select fields in output format. And then you're going to be able to see these are all of the parsing rules in each column separated. And you can define if you need all of these in your output. So for example, if I don't want to include the metadata from Docparser, I just unselect those. If I don't want both of those invoice date columns, I can remove one. I have this confidence rating that I don't need in my output. So all of those I'll just unselect so they're not in my output. And then I can also go over here and define what's the formatting of this in the Excel as well. So if this is a float number, just go ahead and select that. And you can choose from a number of different options for Excel that way. So it's up to you. But you can make all those decisions here so that the output is exactly in the format that you need it. Then you can define how you want it to be sorted. Do you want new documents on top, old documents on top, etc. All right, so now that that's done, we'll click Save. And then I'm just going to click here where it says this link, and the download will start automatically. Let me go ahead and open that up. And so this is what the file would look like. So we have one row per line item that we had, and we have all the other data included as well, invoice numbers, etc. So that is creating the download link. Super, super simple. So the next thing that I want to talk about is our integrations. So probably one of the best things about Docparser is your ability to have this all be kind of a hands-off process. So the files are automatically uploaded and the data is automatically sent to your systems. So as I mentioned in that first step, there are a few different options for importing your files automatically. You can use our cloud import options, so Google Drive, Dropbox, and Box. And these are just watched folders that anytime a new file is imported into them, it will automatically be brought into Docparser at certain intervals. So then we also have inbound email. This is a really common one. People often set up automatic forwarding from Gmail or from Outlook to forward any emails that have those attachments to them, and we'll bring those attachments in. You can use Zapier, Flow, Claris, Workato to connect to hundreds of others, not thousands of other systems through those to send your document. And you can also send in a more customized way through our API or from an FTP server as well. All right, so then for exporting data, we have these options here for you. So you can choose to export directly to a Google spreadsheet. We have Salesforce. You can use, again, Zapier, Workato, Claris, and Microsoft Flow to send to hundreds of other systems. We also have the more customized ways of sending simple or advanced webhooks or using our API to send that data as well. So any of these can be chosen. For today, we're going to go over how to do a Google spreadsheet. All right, so I've already connected my Google account. It is pretty simple to do. You just click Add Account. It's going to prompt you to log into Google, and you'll be redirected back here with your account connected. But mine's already there, so just select it. And then it's going to allow me to select my spreadsheet. So I already have made my spreadsheet. The step is necessary. You do need to have your Google spreadsheet created prior to connecting. And on this spreadsheet, what you need to do is have all of those headers included for the data that you want to send from Docparser to these columns. So I already have my document ID all the way through to my line items included in the first row. So if I go back, I'm going to go ahead and select that demo sheet. And then you can see, scrolling down, I now have all of those values from that first row here that I can then match to my parsing rules within Docparser. So just going here, just clicking and matching to the metadata or to the parsing rule that matches. You can see as I'm going, I am getting a preview on the right-hand side of that data as well. So I know I'm matching the right thing. Oops. And then this is where you can see that giving those columns, those headers, those names like I did in that parsing rule makes this just a little bit easier. So instead of seeing, line items _1, I'm seeing description, I'm seeing quantity, and I know exactly what to match. It's still possible to do it without it, but I just find it really helpful. All right, so now that everything is matched and it looks good, I'm gonna go ahead and save and test. Just confirm here that I wanna send the test data to my sheet. It says it works, so let's check. And now I have all that data automatically added to my Google spreadsheet. So for the sake of showing you the process from start to finish, I'm going to go ahead and upload one more file in the same invoice format here. So I can show you what happens from start to finish to getting it to that. This one. All right. So uploading another file, it's going to automatically go into the import queue. It's going to automatically be parsed. You can see it's in the parsing queue. It'll go automatically through my integrations queue, so sending to my Google spreadsheet, and then it'll end up back at the processed. So you can see it's here. We have the whole file and automatically added already, appending to the end of my Google spreadsheet. So that is creating your first parser, creating your first integration, and yeah, I hope that was helpful. All right, let me move on here briefly. I do also want to mention our product that you can purchase, which is the Parsing Assistant. So if all of this is just a little too complicated, or maybe your file is just very, very complicated, for $99, you can purchase the Parsing Assistant option, and that's going to give you the ability for us to set up the parser for you. So it does only include the parsing rules, not any of the integration section, but we will create all those parsing rules for you for just the $99. So if you find it necessary, go ahead and take advantage of that. So one thing I just want to talk about before we go is Mailparser. So Mailparser is a sister application from Docparser, and Docparser actually evolved from Mailparser. What Mailparser allows you to do is extract data that's locked inside of emails. So you can extract data from the senders, from the subject lines, the bodies of emails, and even some attachments. Mailparser works with CSV, text, Excel file attachments. So it has a lot of really cool use cases for it. If you do receive any kind of data that you want to export from email specifically, I definitely recommend checking it out. So it's at mailparser.io. There is a free subscription. You get 30 emails a month, so just give it a try and see. Maybe it'll work for you. All right, so thanks again, everybody, for joining. Again, feel free to reach out at any time if you have any questions or anything that maybe wasn't answered during today's webinar. You can email or chat with us at any time by just clicking on the icon in the bottom right-hand side of the screen, or emailing us directly at support@docparser.com. We're definitely happy to help you get your parser set up and working. So ask us any questions you have whenever you have them. Thanks, guys. Bye.